So you're looking at Enfield 350 now because Right Tomorrow reckons they're pretty good bikes. Now here's why they're pretty good bikes. Over the years I had the chance to ride a lot of Enfields, and I think in total I rode about 20, and out of those I rode about 15 C5s. So if you ask me how do these new 350 reborns compare to a 500, well, the 500's more maintenance bike, and you have to have a little bit of knowledge behind you after you've put a few kilometres up, how to get there and fix them up and tighten them up and things that go wrong with them, and you got to be there on the spot to fix them. And it doesn't matter if you buy one new or not, sooner or later you're going to strike problems. And I did with, I think every one of my 15 500s I had problems with, like one or the other. But then I swung, and I'd been waiting for a while for the new 350 Classic Reborn to come out. And we'll look at this one here now, like this is the one we're talking about, 7990 Halcyon Grey. So when I got the Halcyon Grey one, first thing I noticed on the bike that out along the run-in period or out along the road when I was riding around, it's a really super smooth ride. So compared to the old 500, which give you a good shake, rattle and roll, the new 350 is a nice smooth bike to ride, and it's just a pleasure to be on. Now remember, you've only got 20 horsepower on tap, so not 27, so the 500 would easily outdo it. But, on the other hand, if you were taking notice of what I said earlier and said you had the MT-03 as your backup bike, well, the MT-03 would absolutely flog the crap out of a 500 Enfield. And believe it or not, I reckon it'd give the 650 Interceptor a run too. It's a sort of get up and go bike, because on specs it runs from 0 to 100 in 5.5 as far I believe, and tops out at about 180 kilometres an hour. So, it's not a slow coach for a 321cc bike. So that sorts that one out, where these ones say to you, the 350 hasn't got enough power. Well, when you haven't got enough power, there's always this way. You just open your wallet and you go down and buy a bigger bike to compensate for the one you're buying, which is a really classic looking ride, and you've got the other one there to compensate for it if you want to go out with a little bit of power. That's the way I work anyway, so it doesn't worry me, and then I don't have to put up with crap from people saying to me, it hasn't got this or it hasn't got that. There's only one way to do it, boys. Open up the wallet, go down and buy the bigger one, then you've got the classic ride, because the 350 Classic, there's just nothing around in looks or feel-good moments which will equal that bike. So for $8,000, I can tell you now, I've been on a lot of bikes, and there's nothing equals a 350 Classic for that feel-good moment. So keep that in mind, and I think you will be very happy there. So we'll get into a few specs on this bike. So what do we get for our $8,000? Well, you get a bike that's nearly all solid metal. It'd be 98% metal anyway, something like that. There's not much plastic on it. I think it's the chain guard, the covers either side of the back section where the ECU is and stuff like that. But apart from that, it's virtually nearly all metal. It hasn't got as much metal on it as the Classic 500, but, it's still got solid mud guards, front and rear, your tank and all that. You got no things like that. So overall, it still weighs in at 195 kilos, or as heavy as a 500. Apart from that, you've got the new J motor, which is a really nice silky smooth motor, like I said, and it's got a nice 5-speed gearbox, and little clutch pulls a little bit on the heavy side, but it's not too bad. Now once you get them run in, which is always a pain with all these Royal Enfields, how you got to run them in and give them cool down or cycles and stuff like that, which is a real pain, like I said earlier, when you're out there giving them a workout. But once it's running for 20 horsepower, it'll get out there and run along at 100 kilometres an hour, and that's pretty good. And more importantly, the reason why you buy a Classic 350 Reborn is virtually for the looks and that feel-good moment that when you get off the bike and you walk away from the bike and then look back and you say, geez, that's a nice looking bike. And like I must admit, I've done that many, many times, because I've got like I said, I've had a lot of bikes over the years, and there's not that many of them I look back. If I do look back at some of them, I've looked back at them and think, geez, I wonder how long it'll take to sell that. I've done that quite a few times, because, geez, I tell you what, for new bikes, just because you get out there and you say to yourself, oh, well, Warren, you've been on a lot of new bikes and you buy a lot and you must have had some fun. I've had a bit of fun on some of them, but there's a lot of them I haven't had a lot of fun on, and a lot of them I regret as soon as I get on that ride and take it for a run. I thought, this has been a mistake, because I think the more, it's like having a lot of cars. If you've had a lot of cars, you get into another one and you know if it's any good or not, and you can know within, I don't know, just a matter of a couple of miles. You're going by a new bike when you can get it sight unseen and there's no test rides, and you get on it and you know within 5 minutes if it's a heap of crap or if it's a goer. Now, so far, I can actually say when I got on the 350 Reborn, I was really happy with that bike right from the start, and everything sort of ticked into place. So it's just a really nice thing to ride, and more importantly, it's been very, very reliable. So to date, I think I've clocked up around about 4,700 kilometres on it, and I've really given it a hammering in under all conditions, and we'll go into that now. Earlier, I'll give this, I think, a fair bit of a workout. Not only have I taken it on like good highway running, back roads, dirt roads, I've had it totally off-road in some of the areas where I should have been out there with that KLX 150, like the outright dual-purpose bike. It should have been in there, not on an Enfield riding it around, flogging the crap out of it. And this particular one I've got has done quite a lot of dirt road running, where, as we're talking here now, you're seeing various clips of it coming up with where I've got it running along the dirt. Now, it's not sort of walking along some of these dirt roads. It's going along 50, 60, 70 kilometres an hour, which it's really a sealed road runner, not a dirt road runner. So I've taken it out everywhere. As far as things go, I haven't had any real main issues with this particular bike, apart from that frozen speedo, which came in right from the very beginning. But one good thing about this one, I end up doing a little bit of fix there and cleaning that out and spraying it, and so far after that, 4 or 5 months later, it's been working all right. And I had the speedo replaced, but I just haven't bothered putting a new one in because this one's still working all right. Now, on the other bike I've got, the Marsh Grey, I've had no issues with the speedo there, so it's more like the luck of a draw. You can either get one with a speedo fault or you'll get one without. So I got a 50-50 bet. I bought 2 bikes in that range. One had a faulty speedo, one didn't. As it is now, both are working fine. So that's the only other thing that's went wrong with the bike since I've owned it. So I've been fairly happy there. And, with 4,700 kilometres, that's pretty good for an Enfield, because if I look back at some of the classic 500s, I had them with sprag clutches go. I had a fuel pump issue. I had a starter motor problem there at one stage. I had fuse blocks, a lot of trouble with fuse boxes. I had trouble with broken regulator brackets. And, I had a few dramas there. This is really interesting. I've been out a couple of times in the early days on these Enfields, and it'd be no different on a 350 Reborn because they look the same as a 500 anyway. Like I said, look at them from a distance, they both look the same, and you'd have to really know the bikes to know them. That's just like if you put a old classic 350, which is carby, alongside a classic 500, which is fuel injected. From a distance, they both look the same, and you can hardly pick them. So as far as that goes, when I had the 500s, for example, I used to pull up at some places and I'd be with blokes that were riding Harleys, or there was one bloke riding a Norton one day, and I think we had a Norton Triumph, and and that Harley, and I was there with them. And believe it or not, they were sort of laughing at me when I was with that one and said to me, Warro, why don't you buy a decent bike? And, that's what they used to say to me. But the reason I bought those ones is because I just always look back to the days in the 60s when I used to go up to the bike shops and look into the window and think, geez, I wish I could have had the money to buy one of those. And, because I'd only just left school, so I never had any money. So, so as far as that goes, that's where it relies on. I just like the look of those old style bikes. And I found that when I've been with them, or I did, and I haven't ridden with anyone for quite a few years now, because remember, I went back into this 10 years ago. So this was in the early stages. Since then, I only went out, in the first year with a few groups, and then after that, I thought, stuff it, I'd rather go by myself, because with people dodging in and around you on big bikes and that all the time and sandwiching you in, I just didn't like the feeling of it, and I didn't feel safe, and I got away from that idea, and I thought, this is not for me. But we did park at a couple of areas around here, one Forest Reefs, and I think once out at Molong, I think, pub out there. And we had a few people come past, and they walked all past those bikes and come down and talked to me about me black chrome Enfield, what a nice job I'd done restoring it. And I told them in those days I'd bought that bike brand new, and they were very surprised about it. So, that's just to show you that you can put, in those days, a $9,500 bike up against one that cost $20,000 or $30,000, and they'll walk past the dear stuff and just come down and have a look at the classic, because the most people that come over and look to you on the classic are people who are possibly around your own age. You're not going to get a 20-year-old come up and have a look at one of these and say, what a great bike, because they'll laugh at you, because it's just not interested. They're probably more interested in looking at an R1 or Hayabusa or something like that. But when you look at something like a Enfield, well, you have to get, let's say, the more mature rider, and or a rider that really knows what a classy bike is. That's what you're looking for. A bloke that sort of knows a classy bike and doesn't want to get it there riding a loud heap of crap. So if you're looking at it that way, you'll get more attention on one of these. In actual fact, believe it or not, I haven't been to a garage now for several years, because I don't like the attention these Enfields get, because when you go to the garage and get there, you'll always have somebody come over and talk to you, and you can't enjoy the ride. You'll be tied up for them 10 or 15 minutes while they look at the bike and talk to you, or something to that effect, and you just can't get out there and do your ride. So usually if you say, well, how do you get your petrol? Well, I usually carry 30 litres here in the house, not in the house, in the garage, in different, or 35 litres, and then if the wife goes to get petrol in one of the cars, I say get me 10 litres, 20 litres, whatever the case is, so I don't have to go anywhere near a garage. So I haven't been near a garage now for a fair while. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you found the clip really interesting, and if you're on the fence now and you're thinking about buying a Classic 350, or you got your plans on getting one, or you'd like to line one up for Christmas, you've got my 100% recommendation that these are really good bikes to buy, well worth buying, and I think you'll be really happy with the purchase. So if you keep that in mind, if you want one of these ones, you won't go wrong. Especially I like the Halcyon grey one here. That one there really looks apart. And to give it that Christmas spirit, look here, I've decorated it up for you now. We've got a few Christmas lights on it. Put the hat over the headlight. We've got the tree over there going too. Set of boots there in case we want to walk off into the sunset. We've got the works. So all we need now is that. And you'll probably notice I've listed quite a few people there at the bottom of the clip as we go along, and I'd like to thank those people. They were the guys that wished me a happy birthday back there when I said it was my birthday last month. And I just thought I'd repay the favour and give them a mention on the channel. So once again, thanks for tuning in, take a look, and I'll catch up with you at a later date.